Hello, 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 hello. Happy Monday, everyone. How is everyone doing? Good morning, Royal Palms. Good morning, Zello. Remind me, Royal Palms, please. Thank you for putting in some earnings, Sterling. Good morning to you. Hey, Sterling, what weather did you end up getting? I know a bunch of the country got pretty hammered. What did you end up getting? Good morning, Patrick. How are you doing this morning? Is it warming up at all in Minnesota? Good morning, Jake. Good morning, Heinrich. Good morning, Jacob. Good morning, David. Good morning, Odie Green. Hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. We have the Super Bowl set now, so we'll see how that plays out in a couple weeks. So, good morning. Good morning, Daniel. All right, we got a busy week ahead. What do we have going on today? We had durable goods back from November. We had the Chicago Fed National Activity Index from October and November. And coming up, we have the Dallas Fed Manufacturing Index. We'll have to see if that comes out of contraction or not. Tomorrow, we got Regional Richmond Fed Indice, Dallas Services Index, the House Index, and Redbook, and ADP on Tuesday. But nothing that's really going to shake the markets. Remember, on Wednesday, we have the Fed meeting with a pause baked in. A Fed pause baked in. So the press conference is going to be the most expensive thing, or the most expensive thing, the most important thing. Good morning, Tony. A foot of snow here and a sore back in the Midwest. A foot, huh, OD Green? Sure, we can go through that, Jake. Uh, Thursday, we have initial and continuous jobless claims, factory orders, and Friday we have the PPI from December. We have the PPI from December. So, most important things this week: Fed press conference. We might get another government shutdown at the end of the week. We shall see. Especially what's going on in Minneapolis. So we'll have to see how that plays out. And we have a lot of key. If we look at earnings, let me jump to that. Sterling put in a couple from this morning, but there's not much market moving today. Tomorrow we got UNH, Boeing, UPS, GM, Raytheon, American Airlines, Northrop Grumman. So we got a lot of stuff tomorrow morning. We don't really see what UPS is going to be saying, but there's a lot of different things from different sectors reporting. After the close, we got Texas Instruments, Seagate. Not a lot after the close tomorrow. Wednesday, we got ASML, GE Verona, AT&T, Corning, General Dynamics, Starbucks before the open. After the open's a biggie. Not only do we get the Fed meeting and press conference on Wednesday, but we have Microsoft, Meta, Tesla after the close. Thursday, we got MasterCard, Caterpillar. After close, we got Apple and Visa are the biggies there. You also have SAP. We gotta say good morning to Yogi. Hello, Charles. Oh, see, it's a heat wave. It's shorts weather, Patrick. High of 14. High of 14. It's shorts weather. SoFi on Friday, American Express on Friday, Verizon, Chevron, and the oil, Chevron and Exxon. So every day has got something going on, especially starting tomorrow morning. So do not sleep through this week. This morning we had a gap down Sunday night, and then the market has already snapped back. Intel continues its sell off, little pressure on the chips today. Energy is heating up. Basic materials with gold and silver vertical. Apple's getting a little bid this morning. If we look at our groups, you got basic materials and energy leading, and everything else close to flat. Consumer cyclical down, the leading the way down, but everything is pretty close to flat. You know, a lot of it is between energy and basic materials are leading. Good morning, Anissa. So the 12 inches of snow we were to get in Greenville, North Carolina, turned out to be so wrong. My deck never even froze. There's a little ice in the trees. Well, you're lucky it missed you, Sterling. Holy's gotta get out of here. Let me know your Verbo website. All right. So we have the pause again. Wednesday afternoon. The pause is baked in. Actually, and we're getting close to the pause baked in for March, so we'll have to see how that changes after a press conference for March and April. Remember, Powell's term is up in May as the head of the Federal Reserve. He can still stay on as just a regional governor. So, fear and greed, neutral mode. Schiller PE 4065. All right, here's your gap down, and already filled the gap. Last night, gap down to the 50 and just below a key level, the 68.87, and to the 50 and already recovered. So heading in the open, I'm keeping an eye on support 69.20, 69.21 area. Resistance for breakout is 69.61. 69.61 to about 69.65 has a pretty key resistance shelf in here. So it's got to start getting above there. And we still do have a gap behind to a couple Fridays ago. Well, yeah, 2 Fridays ago. So that would be, so if we start getting above 69.60, 69.61 area, I'm targeting the gap fill and the 75% harmonic. That's what I'm looking right around 69. It's an area between 69.76, 75 to 69.80. All right. Then we have 77,010, 7,008, 7,010 still on a move up this week. If we start breaking below the 6920 area, I'm focused back at the 50 EMA and the 6887 to about 6882. If we had disaster strikeout, we have a major sell off. I'm looking backwards to about 6840. NASDAQ. Again, gap down through the 50 last night. Actually, if we reverse this and we look to see where it gapped from Friday's, gap between the 50 and the 62.5, and then really nicely recovered. Again, it's still by the dip. Also, we'll get to it in a second. Yen, which had a minor double top pattern, went through that because we're talking about possible yen intervention by not only Japan but the U.S. government stepping in there too. The NASDAQ above 25,726 area. That's got to turn in support for me back to this spike high area to about 25,850 and then 25,918. Key support, minor support, keep an eye on the 4-hour rotation zone on a closing basis, but major support coming in about 25,520 to 25,466. Can't really get aggressive on any breakdowns unless we get below 25,466. Then you're looking back to about 25,320. So, and then on a disaster, we're looking at about 25,160. Rule on Tagger talking about your napkin. Oh, and energy stocks. Hold on. Rule on Tagger talking about your napkin energy. So yeah, I have a lot of energy stocks. This is going to be a big year for energy stocks. Some point we'll go through all those. Gold, silver, monthly RSI will hit 100. Last time we reached that was in World War II. Didn't know that fact. Dark screen. What was that? What period RSI? Dark screen. And again, this thing's gone completely vertical. Not sustainable. I'd just be watching for a momentum reversal. And until that happens, it could keep going higher. Looks like the R zone is flattening on the daily. Would you say this is necessary before more long-term? R zone on what market? It is flattening out on here. We are losing upside momentum. We're really losing upside momentum on each subsequent push higher. I am on alert for a breakdown play. That's why still with volatility dropping, still elevated on spikes, my advice is if your volatility hedging to look to take some, but this market is very complacent, selling way too much volatility. What is it also? Rusty AI trade, Kim Commando suggesting AI stocks. That's probably means it's coming to an end. Thanks for that over on Rumble. Over on Rumble, Rusty. DAX. DAX also. DAX is looking tired, but again, I'm expecting this to maybe set up with a bigger topping pattern. We'd have to get above 25,345. Right now, between 25,048 and 25,196, looking for a possible rollover. If we get above 25,196, looking for it to possibly make the double top. But interesting with the DAX. The yields pulling back still above key support in the rotation zone. So now I'm going to be we might be setting up for a percent B buy pattern. Going to not really look at yields until we get through into Wednesday afternoon. Crude. We are driving up. Again, we've tested C key support. I'm keeping an eye on the 60-70 area. But can't do anything from the short side unless we start breaking below about 58.50 again at this point. Now, the real question is, would this be I got to go through the bar count thing for the double. And also the rule, would this be a double? Because it is in the area. Now we got to see if it's reversing. And yes, this technically would be a double top. So what's that trigger point or the validation point would be below 58.53. So that's the only thing that would make me bearish. I had 58.50. It's roughly around 58.50, 58.53. Yeah, I think it's still going up. I'm still in the short-term bullish camp. It's been holding rotation zone, holding the 50. The only thing that would change my mind, Charles, is if it triggers this double. That's it. That's it. Otherwise, I am still in the short-term bullish. I still want to see how it retests the 62.5 level. Natty Gas breaking above prior resistance. You had some selling breaking above prior resistance. Now, it's a little overdone. Going to be watching at least for a possible gap fill. But then we're also in the 50 to 62.5. On a gap fill, going to be looking for another buy opportunity in the short term. But we don't have it yet. Gold hit the next harmonic. 50.92, and it got to 51.07. Can't even, when you get this, when we can't even get a decent harmonic level anymore because of this, look. You can chase it all you want, but if you're not already long, I wouldn't recommend unless you're trading it scalpy. I'm going to be watching for a key reversal coming up. A key reversal coming up and at least a return to the daily rotation zone. But don't have it yet. Can it keep going higher? Yeah. So my trailing, and my trailing is below the prior day's low. Well, it's below this day low right now for a short-term trail. Silver, there you go. 110.24 harmonic hit. Got to 110.92. Again, another thing we can't even get. Look at if this is just absolutely insane. We're getting divergences now on here, running out of momentum on a vertical basis, but I would not recommend shorting it. Well, keeping an eye on the lows, and this could easily drop back into the rotation zone at some point. There isn't even any decent short setup unless you're looking at little trend line breaks like these. If I could draw it right. So just be careful out there. Would not recommend shorting silver or gold whatsoever, but I'd be trailing for a potential bigger pullback play. Dollar index, which got gutted on Friday, which invalidated the final target on the little mini double and also invalidated the massive weekly double. So I'm no longer in bullish short-term mode. It's got to get down to a key support level and set up a bounce buying pattern. I'm still in neutral mode looking for support and resistance trades. Euro, you can see here, invalidating anything else and jumping all the way back up here at the recent highs. By the way, the double top, this double top, which never triggered, is now a triple top, so it is off the table. By the way, it should have been off the table prior. Here's a good one to do the I didn't take it off before the triple top, but here's the way it works. So in here, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 bars between this top and this top. So we count starting on the next bar for invalidation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. This bar, because it did not confirm the double top, which would have required it to trade below this low, the double was technically off the table then. I just didn't update the chart properly. So there's your rule. Okay? What they could, but World War III could actually be positive for the dollar. All right? It wouldn't be positive for a lot of things. What if they're pricing in? If you still look, yes, the dollar at some point will lose reserve status. It's not going to do it yet. You're going to have another debt crisis before the dollar debt crisis. And that debt crisis will be interesting. Who is buying? I told you, I thought weeks ago that the Bitcoiners and the meme traders all piled into metals now because of the momentum. They're just big momentum traders and they're juicing stuff higher with leveraged plays. So that's what's going on. And for everybody who says it's the dollar debasement trade, look at the dollar. Yeah, we sold off last week, but look at the dollar. It's pretty much back to where it was at the end of June. Where was gold and silver at the end of June? So the dollar's sitting in a big range. Dollar's the same place it was at the end of June. Where was this at the end of June? 3,500. It's not. Yeah, you can say, oh, we're going to see the demise. We're not going to see the demise of the dollar yet. This has turned into a meme play. It's the next thing. And if we look at Bitcoin, I'm watching now because this would be a shake and bake pattern. It's already past the 50% prior support becoming resistance. I'm now watching for the breakdown play. We had the breakout play, which I outlined. Then we collapsed back below the rotation zone. We've moved beyond the 50% of this horizontal channel. So if we take this other way out, everybody who tried to buy the breakout is now, and who didn't stop out, is now trapped. World war may imply cooperation in the world. Well, it could be a war that involves the whole world, not cooperation. All right? Maybe not cooperation. Oh, war is nothing to joke about. Everything's sort of fraying at the edges, but hey, buy it all still. All right, spiders gapping up now from Friday's close. So on a gap fill, 689.23. Key level for me is the 691.20 area. A break above there, you still have a gap fill to 691.66 and then 693.65 is the key price. We got some pretty decent support between 686, just 686.10 to 687. We start breaking 686.10, you have a gap fill down to 685.40, and then I'd be looking back closer to the 50 EMA, not exactly there. The Qs, Still not quite filling the gap. The gap fill would be to 622.72 on the open. Then we're looking very key resistance around 625.45 and then 627.13. We need to start breaking below 617.75, and then I'd be looking at the gap fill in the 50 EMA back to 616.28. The IWM, we finally got the rotation out of this. Rotation out of this back to the rotation zone. I'm going to be looking for another potential bounce buy setup only in the IWM coming up shortly. We finally reset to the rotation zone. So, but there's nothing yet there. What else? AR reminder. Bitcoin and equities have been sort of broken for a bit. That's the only thing that concerns me, Barry. I am looking for a breakdown in Bitcoin. And stocks are getting tired. AR. But I need to break some key support levels before or we have to set up with a really nice bearish pattern. AR. That was a weekly percent B buy last week. I mean, as long as it does not close below the 200 area, it could dip back down that area. But if it loses, let's see, there's a significant level right about 30.60, right in that area. So I'd still be personally, can't give trade recommendations, but I'd be looking on the bullish side as long as AR stays above 30.60. Okay. First target, this 36.56 area that it spiked to. Look, it could not get above the rollover zone yet. So this would be the key area I'd be looking at for short-term profits on any bounce. And then if it goes above 38.42, 40.29, and 42.15. If you start losing the 200, I wouldn't stay long in the short term. And then I'd be looking for a retracement back to closer to 26. How do I decide? I decide on the strength of the move on how it got there. If we got there with a lot of momentum, I close out less of the position. If we got there just grinding higher and it's getting labored, especially if we start getting potential sell signals, I take off more of the position. Check in on coin. I'm seeing further downside ahead. Coin, the potential double never triggered. So yeah, we're still below the 62.5, and the only thing was the potential double. Hit the 75. I expect this to return to the 200 area and at least the 87.5 before that. So just based off the harmonics. So that would be 180 area. 170 to 180 area would be the next key level. And then eventually in coin, if you lose 140 area, watch out. Planners peanuts. This is still completely valid potential double top. So, and that would be below the 50-week EMA. So that's where we sit right there. Did we get a buy signal last week on Netflix? There we go. Okay, I couldn't type this morning. Did we get a buy signal last week? You got a little mini bounce play potentially for the gap fill into the rotation zone on a daily, yes, against off a key support. That's a scalpy one. And it's very oversold. Now, what's interesting is if you can keep an eye on last week's high, 89.90. You break above there, you could be turning into a bigger bounce play into the weekly rotation zone, but it would have to follow through with a weekly close above that level. So on a break above that level, it's a conditional long. And if it doesn't close above that level, I wouldn't be holding it. And that's for a bounce play only. Again, very oversold. That's not, oh, we're going to new highs play. What bank's new target? 6,000. Yeah, we could hit 6,000 again. 200 in silver. Uh, all right, we'll see. Let's see if they can juice it that high. By the way, yen, we had the little mini double, which had, I mean, it confirmed in on one bar on Friday, finished. And then this is all based off potential Japanese central bank and maybe U.S. intervention into the yen. We ticked off the 87.5. And this is very key. This is a very key level up here. I don't have a chart that goes through because if you blow through this level, it's not good. I don't have a longer term chart there. So at this point, I'll be watching for another bounce play in here. Another bounce play. Possibly not this week. We'll have to see because they're still banging the intervention drums. But let's see. There's also back to his 150 area major support. So that's where we sit. Busy Monday. Markets are now open. At least the stocks are now open. Still keep an eye on this 69.60 to 69.67 area. And key support still 69.20. Minor support going in the open 69.50. So that's what I'm looking at right now. With that, I will talk to everyone tomorrow. Hope everyone has a wonderful trading day and wonderful trading week. Remember, we got lots of earnings. We got Fed on Wednesday. We got potential news from government shutdown heading into Friday. So we got mega caps reporting. So do not take naps. With that, I'll talk to everyone later. Bye for now.